Do you mind if I take my coat off? I always work much better with my coat off. Saucy shirt, isn't it?
Linguistics is something I've always found fascinating. Not just the beautiful interplay of enunciations, accents, synecdoches and speech patterns, but the idea that countless times throughout history, blustering gobbledygook and awkward mouth sounds led to the invention of words and language. William Shakespeare spotted this toothy fellow and thought it should be called an alligator, the Beastie Boys christened this perfect haircut the mullet, and a Simpsons joke resulted in cromulent being added to Webster's dictionary. Cinema itself has reappropriated countless innocuous phrases and relaunched them into the cultural landscape as something altogether different. When someone says catfish, we're more inclined to consider the possibility of an online imposter, and if we hear bucket list, odds are someone's cataloguing things to do before they die and not taking an inventory of their mop holders. The term gaslighting may suggest illumination or a radiant glow in the dark, all of which couldn't be further from what it has come to represent. Defined as the action of tricking or controlling someone by making them believe things that are not true, especially by suggesting that they may be mentally ill, the term as we now know it is derived from the 1938 Patrick Hamilton stage play, Gaslight. In it, a recently married couple move into an abandoned house where a brutal crime took place long ago. As the days drag on, the wife is slowly and methodically convinced by her manipulative, murderous husband that she's losing control of her mental faculties. Originally adapted for the screen in 1940 by Thorold Baron Dickinson, unquestionably the most 1940s name ever signed to a birth certificate, it's a tale that sits with you long after it's ended. Surprisingly cruel and relentlessly bleak, it makes for one of the most skin-crawling, uncomfortable thrillers of the era. While that may seem like a given, what with all the strangling, abuse and infidelity, it's still shocking to see such an unrepentant sociopathic bastard casually toy with a young woman's mind.
You think I can trust the insane ravings of a madwoman?
As an audience, any punch you're expecting Gaslight to pull will most likely wind up right in your stomach. The film sets out subverting our headspace right from the off. The gorgeous opening tracking shot through a wealthy borough of London gives the false first impression of a harmless, whimsical street, before sneaking up on a savage ransacking and murder. After what feels like an eternity of escalating tension, the first line of dialogue is a woman crying for help into the uncaring London night.
Help! Police!
Years later, as our central couple move into the forgotten house and the torturous mind games begin, we see the slow undertaking of decorative renovation, plastering over the cracks with a fresh facade, hiding the decay in plain sight.
You make my life a misery at home, and now you shame me in public.
Bella, our embattled protagonist, is held captive not only by her dubious husband Paul's web of deceptions, but by the waspish upper-crust restraint and high society mawkishness of the era. This is a time and place where women are to be seen and not heard.
Not in London, it wouldn't be correct. My dear, I said no.
The other women throughout the film are seen as subservient or sex objects to be positioned and used at the behest of their male counterparts.
Come closer, will you?
The cycle of abuse isn't solely focused on grand gestures of theatrical monstrosity. Moving random items, hiding family correspondence, contriving reasons for Bella to question her own autonomy.
If I do the things you say, then I am going mad.
It's a death by 1,000 cuts.
You're losing your wits!
In a sickening moment, Bella is so starved of human connection, she begs Paul to hurt her, if only to deflect from her internalized anguish.
Hit me, hurt me, do anything, but for pity's sake, speak to me.
Outside of the oppressive confines of this mysterious house, there's a world of warmth always out of reach. Even when enjoying a brief reprieve from the horrors of home, there's an inescapable dread that this is only an interlude to a waking nightmare. It's punishing stuff, watching on as Bella continues dancing to the tune of her declining sense of self. The film's title and the term gaslighting are referring to the gaslights throughout the house. Noticing how they fade and flicker at night, Bella raises the matter with Paul, who puts it down to her growing psychosis. As she collects more clues and inconsistencies surrounding her husband's projections and lies, the truth is revealed. Paul is the unseen murderer from the opening of the film. Having fled the scene before retrieving his victim's valuable jewels, he's waited all these years in order to marry a woman with the means to purchase the house so he can continue his search. Each night as he secretly rummages through the attic, by turning on the upstairs lights, he lowers the gas pressure to the rest of the house, causing the gas lights to dim throughout. It's a testament to the strength of the writing, narrative conceit and performances just how much I loathed this man.
I hate you. You are utterly repulsive to me.
He's even mean to a dog. You'd best thank your lucky stars Keanu Reeves wasn't born yet, you son of a bitch. Critic and professor Emmanuel Levy positions Gaslight and its remake as focal points of a 1940s genre film cycle that could all be filed under Don't Trust Your Husband. Made up of a dozen or so films in which an innocent woman is trapped in their home by a devious, controlling man, luminaries such as Alfred Hitchcock, Robert Stevenson, Robert Siodmak, and Anatole Litvak each contributed a number of classics to this oddly specific stable of thrillers. For quite some time, the version I focused on here was all but lost, only preserved and made widely available through the BFI's tireless restorative efforts. The reason this classic nearly vanished from memory? When the 1944 remake of the same name was produced, they set about destroying all surviving negatives of the original in order to expunge its existence and leave their version as the only commercially available alternative. Yet another shining example of the film industry being trash-flavoured trash. As for the American remake itself, it's great. While it follows many of the same beats to the letter, there are noticeable changes that make it a worthy double feature. It's a glossier, higher budget affair all around, with meatier subplots and more elaborate staging. Notably, the central relationship between husband and wife is expanded and given greater depth. Here, he's not a mustache-twirling bastard right from the start. He uses warmth and kindness to lure in his victim, giving way to cruelties that shape the story from there on out. With all that said, if you're gonna pick one, I'd stick with the nastier, grungier original. Its smaller scale makes for a greater sense of claustrophobia, and the use of canted angles and exaggerated lighting lends it a quietly gothic, uncertain air. It sits comfortably alongside the suspense and whodunit intrigue of the definitive Hitchcockian potboilers. No surprise given another of Hamilton's plays would later be adapted for the screen by the man himself. Beyond its common use in everyday language, Gaslight's casual sadism can be found scattered across entertainment to this day. Films as diverse as Rosemary's Baby, Colossal, and The Truman Show all fall into this particular brand of manipulation by those in a position of power. This is one of those situations where the products of influence are more widely seen than the source of the initial inspiration. The societal prevalence of the expression gaslighting when referring to coercive abuse, and its incorporation into such a wide range of genres, speaks for itself when you consider how little we discuss the genesis of the term. If you can stomach the shit-heeled awfulness of its antagonist long enough to will our heroine across the finish line, spark up Gaslight, and feel your way through this dark, depraved classic. Special shout out to our Patreon producers Jennifer C. and Paul of the Pauls, as well as everyone who generously donates to the channel to keep us going. What are the most uncomfortable cinematic examples of gaslighting you've seen? Let us know in the comments. As always, we'd really appreciate it if you did all that like, share and subscribe business, and if you'd like to see more from the channel, consider supporting our Patreon at the link in the description. Until next time, this is In Frame Out.